Thank you everyone for joining us. As you know, we are all experiencing new levels of stress. Our hopes today include coming together to talk about it and most importantly, to encourage each other. I wanted to extend a special thanks to Jim Heath for his willingness to bring us all together. And also, along with Jim, we are very, very thankful to have Dr. Hogan with us today. Okay, please welcome Jim Heath. He's going to start us off and talk about the current state.
Great. Can y'all hear me okay, Stephen?
I can, Jim.
Great.
I can hear you.
Great. Well, first I want to appreciate everybody taking the time to be on the call. I think it's a very important topic, and that this year especially is what's done to us. At the first of the year, I was extremely optimistic about the year. And at the beginning of the year, we had implemented some new strategies on building census, and had a really good, strong, consistent, high-level census. We were making plans. Everything, I don't say it had gotten a little easier, but it was nice. It was much better than 2019 for us here at Carnegie. Then the pandemic and outbreaks came, and the year quickly turned into the most frustrating, stressful, depressing year of my career. 20 plus year career. It just really become a very challenging year with that. And stress is not new to us in this industry. Really, we deal with stress all the time. But what was different about before the pandemic, our stress was really more. It's acute. Something happens, our stress spikes up, and we deal with the situation in a short amount of time, a day, a week, maybe even a month, and then we resolve it. Our stress level goes back down. And now this year has been different. Our stress spiked up, and we stayed at that high level of stress for months over months over months. And I speak to a lot of people within Stonegate and in the industry, and pretty much hear the same thing. I can't do this anymore. What do I do? The stress is killing me. It's affecting my health. It's affecting my family life. What else can I do? I got to get out of the industry. I just don't. I can't deal with this anymore. So, a couple weeks ago, I was speaking to Brandon about this, and I said we ought to have a call about this. My psychologist said she was more than willing to. Dr. Hogan, our psychologist here at Barnett Hill, was more than willing to speak about it. She spoke to our staff a few times and really provided some great tactics to deal with this stress. Brandon also wanted to have Stephen Shee involved. He also had to provide some great insight and resources for us also. And one of the things they're going to talk about is this support group and the need to have a support group. And so, I had one. I had probably about 6 people in my support group. These are individuals in the industry that I can call and say, hey, I can vent to them. I can ask them questions. Most of the time, when venting, they're just listening. And that's all I needed. I can get past my moment and move on. And vice versa. They can call me. We speak in confidence with each other. I can sit there and listen to them, and also they're able to get back past that moment, move on. And we're really a resource for each other. The whole group is. We support each other. It reaffirms to me that we're all in this together, and we need each other to make it through this. I'll be honest with you, probably without that support group, I probably wouldn't be sitting here today. It's just has been that supportive for me. And I hope you have one. If you don't, you feel free to call me. I'll be glad to listen. My wife says, equally to how handsome I am, I'm a fantastic listener. Now, if you believe that, please call me so I can sell you something. But no, my wife is a great lady, but she's she's probably a better listener than I am any day of the week. Now, one of the key parts when I talk about the individuals in my support group, I talk about in the industry because they understand what we're going through. And I think that's key. I could go home and talk to my wife about what's going on. Super intelligent lady, but she just wouldn't understand it and wouldn't understand what I'm going through. And so I have to find those other resources that she offers support, on other topics. So, there again, I hope you have one. If you don't, please find one or call me and I'll help you With that, I'm going to pass it on to Dr. Hogan, and we'll go from there.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay, good. Well, my name is Dr. Milana Hogan. I am a psychologist and I am affiliated with Med Options. Psychologists, we are present in long-term care / rehab facilities, and I've been doing this kind of work for about 14 years. And I've had the pleasure of being at Garnet Hill twice. I worked at one company under Garnet Hill when it first opened, and I had to leave when I went to another company for a non-compete clause. And I get a phone call from Mr. Jim Heath one day saying, "Want you back." So, I mean, he knows how to make a girl feel good. So I'm back at Garnet Hill, and it's been a pleasure. And thank you, Jim, for giving me this opportunity just to share and hopefully, let everybody know we're all in the same predicament. So I hope that I can offer something to you, because here we are in approximately month 7 officially of the pandemic, trying to hold it together. And as Jim stated, we are dealing with, we've all been stressed out. We've all dealt with stress, but like Jim says, usually acute, it comes and it goes and we get bounced back. But this has been a chronically stressing time for the past 7 to 8 months. So I want to just offer just some tactics on how to manage, and especially my heart goes out to all of you all who are in the positions you are in the long-term care and rehab industry. And it's tough, but we're going to make it. And nothing else that keeps me going is that even though this has been going on for as long as it's been going on, it still is just temporary. And we'll be reading about this time period of our lives in the history books 10 and 20 years from now. So next slide, please, Stephen. Okay, first, we've heard of stress, but just to remind everybody technically what stress is, it's a biological response to the demanding situation. It causes us to release hormones that we probably heard of before called cortisol and adrenaline. In typical times, we deal with stress, and these hormones help us deal with it. It's either the fight or the flight syndrome. We either stay and deal with it, and the hormones help us, or we leave it to get away from the situation. However, when we're dealing with chronic stress, symptoms can come in and start to fester inside of us. So you'll find yourself potentially being more irritable or more snappy with folks. Maybe you're a little short with family members and coworkers. You're more fatigued than usual. Don't have the energy to do anything but go to work, come home, barely eat, and go to bed. There are also physical symptoms when you start noticing you're having more headaches than usual, sleep problems, either sleeping too much or too little. I can only imagine, especially those first few months. I don't know all the details about, because I'm a guest in the nursing home, but when things had to shut down, I'm willing to bet the majority of the personnel, including the administrators, were not getting enough sleep, especially at the beginning. And that could lead to a whole nother set of problems. Folks could have digestive issues. If you already have digestive problems, it gets exacerbated by stress. If anybody has irritable bowel, we know that chronic stress makes that worse. We know in times when we're stressed, and it's a good stress, we're just nervous about presenting. My stomach is a little queasy, but we make it through. Okay, that's okay. But if that's ongoing for a long period of time, you could have problems that lead to ulcers. Their feelings of people indicate their feelings of helplessness, don't feel like you have a sense of control over things. And I certainly myself kind of felt like that, especially the first few months of at the beginning of this pandemic. Not realizing you don't have enough information, not knowing if you are doing enough to make sure you're okay, make sure the situation is okay, make sure your family is okay, make sure the employees are okay. There's a lot of things that we feel that we probably used to have control over now that we're maybe questioning now. and frequent illnesses. It's not uncommon that people have been reporting that who have already had cardiovascular issues, it's been exacerbated. But I've got a patient now whose blood pressure has gone up tremendously since the beginning of this pandemic. And I'm not talking about in there, I'm talking about, I work part-time in a private practice, so I see patients, private patients as well. And she's had to take off of work because she can't get her blood pressure under control because she's feeling overwhelmed by the demands, not only of her job, but the stresses of personally of the pandemic has placed on her. So we have to be really mindful of these things and realize that when you start seeing these signs and symptoms, you've got to do something about it because it could lead to more serious issues. Next slide, please. So in the interest of time, I'm just going to, go through a few tips of dealing with stress. And the first one that I put it first because if you don't remember anything else today from what I say, is to breathe. Now, it sounds logical, but sometimes I don't think we realize that when we're stressed, nervous, you don't realize how sometimes you hold your breath. We tend to hold our breaths when we're nervous and anxious, even if it's just briefly. And over a period of time, that can have some deleterious effects on us. So here's, I've used it when I've had patients in the nursing home who were agitated. And, I can't get technical like I can with the general population, say, okay, we're going to hold our breath and we're going to count and we're going to inhale to this amount of money and then we're going to exhale to this. To make it easier for our patients, here's what I tell them to do. And here's what you're going to remember if you don't remember anything else today. You're going to smell the roses and blow out the candles. So you're going to smell the roses, hold it, and blow out the candles. If all else fails, just simply stopping to breathe can actually calm you down before you make any rash decisions or do something that you'll regret, or just help you face whatever you're about to face. The good thing about this medicine, it's free. You don't need a prescription. You can do it while you're sitting in the car before you go into the building. You could do it before you go and deal with your employees. You can do it before you get out of the car and go back home after having a long day of work. I'm not just a psychologist, I practice this myself. I did it right before here because I have a little anxiety when I speak in front of people. So I do breathing and I listen to a little nice music. And thanks, Stephen. You don't realize you were helping to help my stress level go down a little bit by just providing some music. Also, don't forget to pace yourself. Again, like I said, we're 7 to 8 months into this. This is not a marathon. So you can't do it all. Pace yourself. Sometimes things don't work out when you've tried to figure out how to make this work within your facilities. Sometimes it's a trial and error. And I know probably some things you were doing at the beginning of the pandemic, you saw it didn't work. It's okay. Pace yourself and you start back over, figure out what does by using information. Be careful, just, take it in stride. Again, remember, this is a marathon and not a sprint. We don't know how long we'll be dealing with this. So we've got to take care of ourselves. Another thing, again, these things seem logical, but sometimes us free-thinking, intelligent people need to be reminded to do things that seem obvious, but sometimes we don't do them. Take breaks. One thing I like to do is just stop in the middle of work and just listen to the music for a few minutes. The one thing I like about Garnet Hill, just because that's the one nursing home I'm in, I have to brag. I love the fact that Jim has the big TV out in the lobby and will play music. The music is just piping through one of those music channels. And that does a world of good. I've watched patients just sit there and just take the music in. I think music is another one of God's medicines, in addition to breath, music. It's soothing. It takes me temporarily to a place, reminds me of things, and reminds me that things will eventually be all right. But take breaks, even if it's just to get out the building for 10 minutes, walk around the building. Maybe walk around the facility. They may think you're watching things and checking on everything, but you're actually also just getting a break, getting from behind that screen, walking, moving your body. Do whatever it is for you that you can manage to do during the day and even at home. I think this also encourages us, this time is encouraging us to be more flexible with things. We can't do it like we've always done it. This pandemic has shown us that we've had to learn how to be flexible. I definitely have to learn to be flexible, especially if you are not only juggling your job, but you're juggling friends and family and friends and the responsibilities that come with that. Sometimes you may have to learn how to do it a different way in order to get something accomplished. I know usually we like, once we know how to do something, we do it, we want it to always do it this way. But you know, there's more than one way to skin a cat. And I always say, be flexible in terms of just approaching life. And this pandemic is teaching us lessons about that. I can't stress enough about monitoring your physical health. I kind of touched on it earlier, but I am seeing the effects of this pandemic on folks. Also in my private practice, I was scared that I had just started my practice when the pandemic broke, and I literally had 1.2 patients going, oh my gosh, and I had just stopped at 3 nursing homes and was down to 1. But I ended up having my first, second patient being a woman who was pregnant in the middle of the pandemic and wondering how she was going to bring a healthy baby into the world. Now, I will say she has since been able to give birth, and we had to take it all in stride, but it's so important to make sure that you maintain your physical health. You still go to your doctor's appointments, whether it's virtual, and there are a lot of these offices I appreciate are really trying to make sure things are hygienically safe so that you can still monitor, because some of us may have chronic illnesses and be tempted to ignore it until after the pandemic. This is not the time to do that. So I want to make sure that we're doing what it takes to monitor our physical health, watching the things that we're eating. Is so typical. You're starting to hear about the COVID-15 pounds. Guilty. I have a 9-year-old son that I think just because I'm fixing his snack that I've got a snack on it as well. And I've had to say, I've got to stop the madness. So I've had to join a little support group that my sister developed to force me to go out and walk. So I realized that I cannot come out of this pandemic with more issues than I had when I came in. So please be mindful. Please keep your doctor's appointments. Please keep taking your medicine if you're on some. This is not the time to neglect those things. Another tip that I cannot stress enough is to socially connect. Isolation, we're already somewhat isolated because of the necessity to be safe and to socially distance. But there are still ways to be socially connected. And I love the fact that Jim has said that he has a support group that he's a part of. That's a perfect way to socially connect. I was going to say it later in the slide, but I'll say it now. This is when technology is a blessing to have. I've attended birthday parties via Zoom. I've been able to socially connect with people who I haven't even seen in 20 years because the pandemic has made everybody so lonely. We want to find out, let's get together with people I haven't seen in 30 years from school. Those are things that help keep perspective, help us check in on each other, make sure everybody's okay. So I want to encourage you to stay socially connected in whatever way you can, whether it's just to pick up the phone and talk to someone. Promoting teamwork. Again, you all are showing examples of that right now by virtually having something like this shows that teamwork is taking place within this company. But also in your respective jobs, making sure that you can't be Superman or Superwoman. You've got to allow people to help out so that you all can all work together to help each other bear the stress of this pandemic. So those are simple little things that you can do to bear in this pandemic. Next slide, please. Self-care is not selfish. I don't know sometimes why I'm speaking in generalities right now, but there seems to be this guilt that we place upon ourselves for doing something for ourselves. Well, you hear this old saying that, when you're flying the airplane, when they say oxygen is needed. They say if you have a child, they say first put the oxygen on yourself before you put it on, then you help the child, because if you don't have the oxygen, you won't be there to help your child. So same thing here at work. If you are not taking care of yourself, how are you going to be able to take care of others? So I wanted to, these are a few pointers. It's not limited to this, but these are some of the things that I think have helped me, but also have helped people that I've advised. And one of my first things that I always talk about is to take a break from that news. It is so tempting to want, especially at the beginning of this pandemic, to watch, and what people were noticing is their heart was beating faster. They were getting more anxious, more nervous about, getting access to this news. Remember, we're in a 24-hour news cycle now compared to the old days in the 70s where you only had pretty much two times a day that you could watch the news. So be careful. Notice some people, believe it or not, when you're watching the news and watch especially about the pandemic, you probably find yourself holding your breath because of some of the anxious information anxiety-provoking information that's coming across. So be careful about how much news you allow yourself to view. Watch those in your household, watch those in your buildings who may seem to be a little obsessed with it, because you may notice that they're becoming more anxious and more depressed. I encourage you to meditate. Again, meditation can mean different things for different people. Just going through the breathing cycle can be a form of meditation. Whatever that is for you, listening to music and reading can be a form of meditation. These are ways to remind you that you have a time where you can be at peace. Find your specific spot. Find your spot that this is the spot where I get into self and that I commune with self and I meditate, just to remind me that eventually everything will be okay. I cannot stress enough exercise. And I'm not saying you got to go and run 10 miles every day. If you just simply engage in walking to get that energy out, help you get more energy as well, help decrease that stress. I do notice that when I do my walking regularly, I'm able to manage my blood pressure more effectively. I'm able to deal with issues. I develop more clarity when I'm walking. It's something about walking that helps me to think more clearly. It's something most of us can do without having to have a gym membership, if this weather is permitting. Look, there are even things now you can walk in your own home in a room if you look at walking videos that take that into mind. So it's not even you don't even have to have wonderful weather. You can do these things at home. So make sure you're exercising. Using, again, I said before, I'm skipping over, I'm sorry. Embrace an old or new hobby. This is the time now where you do something that you enjoy doing to take your mind off of work for a little bit. I tell you what, I have played about 20,000 games of Uno with my 9-year-old son that I had to play since I was a teenager. But it was a way actually to get him sometimes to get him off of the screen and to engage in a family game. I've also, tidied up a closet that I needed to tidy up for a while. So find a new hobby or embrace an old or a new project just to do something that has nothing to do with work. Again, I can't stress enough, thank goodness again for technology enabling us to do these Zoom calls, get in touch with people we hadn't been able to get in touch with, go to birthday parties. I've actually even attended, and this is not to be morbid, but I was able to attend a a Facebook Live funeral because I wanted to show support for a friend whose sister passed away. And we all know that they're really discouraging us to have the tradition of funerals now. But technology has helped me be able to support this friend and even, write in the chat to let them know that I was thinking of them. So we've had to really do things that if we had said 20 years ago that we would be attending a funeral via Facebook, somebody would be like, oh no, that's crazy. But now things that we thought were crazy 20 years ago are becoming the norm and necessary, actually. This is a big one. Resist the urge to self-medicate, whether it's with alcohol or other illicit substances. It is easy. I can tell you, I've had several patients who is becoming more normal after work to come home and have several drinks. And again, what could turn into what was considered probably a little harmful drink can turn into 3 and 4 on a daily basis, excuse me, if we're not careful. Monitor yourself. Um, there are other things other than substances that can help us to calm down, because you don't want to come out of the pandemic with another problem in addition to what we're already dealing with. I can't stress enough seeking counseling and psychotherapy services. There are good things that have come out of the pandemic. And the one thing is insurance companies have become quite lenient when it comes to telehealth. They're not making us jump through as many hoops. So most folks are eligible for telehealth who might not have been before the pandemic. The majority of my private practice now is through telehealth. I tell you what, I had never done telehealth before the pandemic. So it has forced me to do something that I wasn't totally comfortable with at first. And now I'm doing it almost every other day now. But you'll see, check it with your insurance. Most teletherapists, most folks are doing teletherapy now. So even if you can't go to an office or don't have time, you could potentially on your lunch break. I've done lunch break when folks are at work and I'm seeing them during their lunch break for teletherapy just to help them manage and navigate this pandemic. What I thought was going to be devastating to my practice, unfortunately, and you hate to say it, but actually people have started relying on psychotherapy to help them get through the stressors of dealing with the pandemic. So we go to the next slide, Stephen. So as Jim said earlier, sometimes it just boils down to just first be willing to listen, whether it's to your family members, to your employees. Sometimes you'll get more out of your employees just because you actually listen to them and they just felt good about you listening, that it makes them want to do a little extra that may be needed within the facility. Share, I think it's admirable when someone in a position of authority or power actually allows themselves to be a little vulnerable and share how the pandemic has been a stressor for them. It helps humanize everybody who's dealing with this. The big thing that I have been really preaching to myself as well as to friends and to patients is being willing to extend grace to each other. I know I can admit that I have probably said some things and behaved in ways that I normally would not have had I not been under the stress of a pandemic. Like I said earlier, been a little more irritable, may have been a little snappy to someone that I didn't need to be, that I didn't intend to and didn't want to and didn't deserve it. And so I'm asking, just as I want people to extend grace to me, think about giving the gift of grace to others. We're all under stress. We've never dealt with anything like this before. This is an unprecedented, stressful situation that we've been in. So I think extending grace to each other, as well as to the people out in the community, saying thank you. I'd say thank you now to the folks when I walk in Target or Walmart, just who are trying to make sure that we have clean carts, who are wiping off the carts. Can you imagine them putting themselves in a position they never thought they'd have to do something like this. And if they seem a little snappy, I'm like, okay, I just let it rub off. They may be having a rough day. But I think extending grace, if nothing else, is something that can help us all get through this together. And again, just promote teamwork, assuring everyone that we're all in this together and what can I do to help you feel better, which will eventually turn back around and help you feel better. So yes, just again, listen, share, extend grace, and promote teamwork. Next slide. Just wanted to put a few resources up for you. I know Stephen's going to touch on this in a few, but take advantage of your employee assistance program. I think in general, people don't take advantage of something that's entitled to them enough with our respective employers. So please take advantage of any access that you have for employee assistance to get counseling. Just also want to let you know, another little jewel is that Psychology Today has a referral program that's free. You can just go on their website and literally put in the area that you want the counseling to be, and it tells you all of the specialties that each counselor has, what insurances they take, and information, and takes you to their websites. So that's a good program not everybody tends to know about. Also want to be realistic. Again, this is chronic stress, and you can't talk about being stressed without talking about being depressed. A lot of people are finding themselves more depressed than usual and stressed out. And want to just give a hotline, even if it doesn't apply to you, but hopefully you'll have this as something that you can give to someone else who may be dealing with this, who can't see any way out, who doesn't think they can make it one more day. Want to have access to the National Suicide Hotline. And I want to also give you a local number too, the Suicide and Crisis Center of North Texas, which is at the bottom of the screen. Even if it doesn't apply to you, it's just a good number to have handy in case you need to be of help to someone else. And with that, I am done with my presentation. Thanks, Stephen. Oh, by the way, I'm very accessible. I'm sorry, I forgot. That's my email address. I'm accessible. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If you extend a little grace to me, if it takes me a day or two. But I am accessible, and Jim Heath always knows how to get in contact with me. Thank you for your time and your presence.
Thank you, Dr. Hogan, for all your love and your energy. You have a beautiful heart, and we just appreciate you so much. And you know, I can feel your love. So thank you for sharing that today with all of us. I'm going to move in here to the establishing a support group. And I'll be honest with you, this is an area that hasn't come easy for me. Within the last 2 to 3 years, I've noticed that asking for help is a lot harder than I thought it would be. And it's very, very challenging. I figured out why as well. If you're anything like me, I internalize my emotions, and knowingly or unknowingly, I take things on, and I take things in. So during this pandemic year, I'll say that one of the most helpful things I've learned about emotions is the following. What goes in needs a way out. Okay, so what goes in needs a way out. I personally am very thankful for the opportunity to be a part of so many lives. They've shared with me emotions of anxiety and fear, feeling overwhelmed of all years, denial, emotions of grief, just to name a few. And they've also said, hey, when push comes to shove, these emotions find a way out. And sometimes that even brings on more guilt because of the way in which these emotions flow. So I had to get honest with myself, and I had to accept that asking for help was not a weakness. We all have emotions, we all need to vent, and we all need a support system. Jim and Dr. Hogan expressed this a lot. I also am going to support that. I cannot express to you how important a support group is. I'm going to mirror what Jim said. I don't know where I'd be this year if I didn't have a support system. The amount of love, the amount of encouragement, many of you on this call are a part of my support system, and I really appreciate that. I need your prayers. We all need prayer this year. And so here's my advice. Number one, first ask God for help in all things at every moment possible, and may God bless us all. Number one. Number two, if you don't have a support group, today is a wonderful opportunity to start one. And I'm going to walk through some very practical steps. Here's how you do it. The first thing is think about an empathetic connection. So seek people out in your life that you have an empathetic connection with. Jim mentioned this earlier. These are individuals that are really good listeners. Dr. Hogan mentioned this as well: compassionate, patient, kind, understanding. So many of these can be co-workers, close friends, faith and support groups, mentors and counselors. I did purposely leave the family members and spouse toward the end. There's a lot more complexity, as you guys know, with families and spouse, and also just their capacity. So be cautious with that, but think through those groups. And I've got a exercise for us today. So if you have a pen and a piece of paper, I want you to, so think about those groups: co-workers, close friends, support groups, counselors. If you don't have a support group, I want you to write down 3 people's, their names. Okay. Now, don't overthink it. Just the first 3 people that come to mind. I'm going to give you a minute. Now I want you to commit to contacting them within the next 20 to 48 hours. So a simple way of doing it, I know, trust me, yeah, I haven't been good asking for help, but it gets better the more you practice it. So a simple way to ask individuals: you can email, you can text, but this is all I ask. I said, will you be a part of my support team? It's amazing, the response. I didn't realize that there's so many individuals that want to love and help us. To be in long-term care, to be in this industry, you have to have a heart that loves people, cares for people. It's a very unique heart. You have to have an empathetic connection with people. It's a skill. Your sensitivity, the ability to have that, all of those things take a very, very special heart. People know that about you. People know that about me. The moment we can ask for help, it's an amazing thing that happens. People love to help those that help others. So that in itself, that's our emotional workout for the day. In addition to the resources I mentioned here, we within Stonegate, at no cost to you, we also have this grief counseling service. It is available to all full-time employees and eligible dependents. They do offer counseling sessions, 5 sessions for each grief-related incident, and an unlimited number of incidents. So what's good about this is if this is a part of your support team, in my past, I've used counseling. I support it 100%. It's a wonderful process. Also use me as a resource if needed through this. I've left the information, how to call, how to visit, within the slide here. Also, I am a resource, so please feel free to email, phone, text at any time, and look forward to being a part of that with you together. And the last slide I have here is what Dr. Hogan mentioned as well, related to the domestic violence and also suicide lines. We'll send this presentation out after we finish our call today with this information. So I advise you, if at your facilities, if you don't have this information posted, just let me know. I'll be happy to help get that to you. And so that is that. And so I wanted to thank everyone for being here today. I'm going to check and see if we have any questions. And for the call. Okay, Jim, a question for Jim. Let's see here. Jim, see, you mentioned you have a support group for yourself. In what ways has your support group benefited and helped you?
Well, I mean, I would say, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
So, I mean, I would say, obviously, in two ways. When, I'll call and ask about their opinion about this requirement, has this changed, especially, things that seem like for a while they were changing daily. Just make sure I was on the same mindset that they were on what the requirement was. But also, too, just you get that email or you get that phone call or something, and you just think it's whatever ridiculous or way off base, and you just need to call someone and complain about it. Mm-hmm. And that's about having the people in the industry. They probably got the same email you got, and they understand it and on the same page with you about it. So that's really about how they really support me.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jim. Just having those moments to be able to express our emotions and having that safe environment to do it, and just feel supported, by people and no judgment. And you'll be surprised, like you said, we all experience a lot of the same experiences together. So reaching out and communicating helps us a lot. Very good. Thank you, Jim. Okay, a question for Dr. Hogan. Let's see. You mentioned extending grace to yourself. I struggle in this area. I'm my own worst enemy. What is a good first step to doing this? Extending grace. I guess it's to yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we have to remind ourselves that we don't have to be perfect. We aren't perfect. There's no such thing as the perfect person. And imperfect people make mistakes. Imperfect people do things sometimes that they wish they hadn't done. And to know that you're not alone. I think it helps when you find out other people have done similar things. So that's when like a support group, a support system comes in. Because sometimes you just need to check in with someone, okay, hey, I did this. I can't believe I'm like this. I can't believe I did this. And we tend to say, oh, I did that so-and-so and I'm okay. I made that mistake too. You find out that nobody is perfect and everybody does things that they wish they hadn't done or hadn't been part of or hadn't said. So practice on yourself so that you can do it with others. Mm-hmm. But first, practice on yourself. So it takes practice. You're right. It does take practice. We're so good at beating ourselves up, and we're professionals. But I spend most of the day trying to help people extend grace to themselves and saying the world is not going to stop because you made a mistake. So it takes practice, and it's not gonna, it's gonna be difficult at first, but cut yourself some slack, just like you would give the same advice you would give to someone else if they're asking you that question. Give it to yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's easier said than done.
It is. That's why I say you have to practice.
Yeah. So that's really.
But you know what I want to say? Usually, what I will say when I have someone say something, ask something simpler, I said, pretend someone just asked you, said that same thing to you, mm-hmm. a dear friend, a dear family member. What is the advice that you would give to that person? Mm-hmm. And then I would say, give that to yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Being kind, it's we tend to be external and give kindness to many.
Yeah, but we won't be kind to ourselves for some. Yeah, we like to beat ourselves up.
Yeah,
but it doesn't make you feel any better.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Or go see a counselor if you're still having difficulty, which you have testified has really helped. So
it helps.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. I think we have, let's see here. I think we got time for one more question here. Thank you, Dr. Hogan. All right. I struggle asking others for help. How do I start? Okay, good question. Well, I'll start with this too. Yeah, it takes a little bit of vulnerability to ask for help. And I think that an easy way that I've started, which has been really interesting, and Jim and Dr. Hogan, please feel free to share as well, is I've asked people to pray for me. Now, what I've had to do is I've had to get a little vulnerable because they're like, well, what would you like for me to pray about? And then so that helps me to be specific. So I've literally had people praying for our time together here today. And I'm a little surprised on how much I feel supported by it, asking for prayer, asking for those thoughts or good vibes, however the request comes. But if you're struggling asking for help, there's a lot of different levels to it. Maybe try that. That's really been helpful to me. And Dr. Hogan, maybe you have some thoughts as well?
Well, I think, sometimes we have those little voices in our head that are technically called cognitive errors or cognitive distortions that convince us that we'll get our head snapped off for asking for help. Well, when you'll be surprised when you do ask for help that people want to help. The people, hopefully you're surrounding yourself by people who are there who want to help, and your friends and family members and coworkers better than, and who are in your personal circle. Um, and if they're good people, they want to be there to help. They would probably be hurt if you didn't ask for help and find out that you're suffering unnecessarily because you didn't ask for help. I think we all have to learn to allow our vulnerability to open us up for help and think about the consequences of not asking for help,
Mm-hmm.
um, which could be very serious if we continue to ignore it and not pay attention to it. So think about the big monster is not going to jump out and get you just because you ask for help. It's intelligent. It's an intelligent thing to ask for help. And the older I get, the more I have learned to just ask for help. Something about after turning 50 last year, I was just like, I need help. I needed help to make sure that I had a brighter background. And thank goodness I still am around some young folks who know how to do it. And here I am. You can see my face better. But
Yes.
yeah, I think we send ourselves more negative and nerve-wracking messages, convincing ourselves that it's the worst thing in the world, where it's the best thing in the world is to ask for help.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to, Jim, I want to thank you so much for today, Dr. Hogan as well. Just appreciate your guys' heart so much, and for everyone on the call as well. This group to me is a part of my support group. I appreciate all of the encouragement you give me on a daily basis. I feel it. I need it. I'm so thankful for it. We hope to keep on loving this year. Please don't be shy. Please don't hesitate. Reach out as much as we can together. Let's support each other. Come together. We will, as it was mentioned today, together we'll walk through this together. So let's support each other. Thanks for all the love, and hope you guys enjoyed the session today.